We are going to take you to President Trump, who is continuing to say he does not know Lev Parnas, despite Parnas's claims to the contrary. Let's listen in.
We just made the two best trade deals in the history of our country. We are doing well. I don't need the help of a man that I never met before, other than perhaps taking a picture at a fundraiser or something, if that's where it was taken.
Are you still going to Davos? And if you are, what's the message you want to send?
I will probably be going to Davos. I've been invited. We have tremendous world leaders, and we also have the great business leaders, and we want those business leaders all to come to the United States. Some of the businesses left the United States because they were disgusted with what happened, and now they're all coming back. We are booming. Our country's the hottest country anywhere in the world. There's nothing even close. Every world leader sees me, they say, "What have you done? This is the most incredible thing that we've ever seen." I understand the stock market today broke 29,000. When I came in, it was a fraction of that. It was a number that, frankly, would have gone, and it would have been cut in half had the other person or the other party won. The number would have been cut in half. We are doing so well, and I want to get more. We have tremendous room for growth in our country in terms of the economy. We have tremendous, powerful room for growth. So I'm going to be going to Davos. I'll be meeting the biggest business leaders in the world, getting them to come here. I'll also be meeting with foreign leaders. Okay?
Mr. President, you're talking about prayer and faith today. What's your message to the millions of Catholics in the United States? Why should they vote for you in the upcoming election? Catholics.
Well, I have a great relationship with Catholics. I've done so much for Catholics. You take a look at the abortion issue. You take a look at many of the issues, Mexico City. You take a look at so many of the different issues. My relationship with Catholics and the Catholic Church has been very, very good, as you know very well. Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
Mr. President, Rudy Giuliani wrote a letter to Zelensky requesting a private meeting, and he said it was in his capacity as private counsel to President Donald J. Trump. This was before the inauguration. Did you authorize him to write that letter, and what was your understanding of what the meeting was supposed to be about?
Well, I don't know anything about the letter, but certainly Rudy is one of the great crime fighters in the history of our country. He's certainly probably the best over the last 50 years. He was also the greatest mayor in the history of the city of New York. I think Rudy was truly an outstanding mayor. It's an example, his endorsement of Bloomberg got Bloomberg elected. He wouldn't have even been mayor. But Rudy was the greatest crime fighter, and Rudy is somebody that, frankly, having him on my side was a great honor for me, and it has been a great honor for me. Rudy Giuliani did a phenomenal job over a long period of time in fighting crime. And frankly, he's a very legitimate guy, a very straight shooter. I didn't know about a specific letter, but if he wrote a letter, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Rudy was always in. It was very important to Rudy that I be a great president, and that's okay with me. It was very important to a lot of people because our country was going to hell, and now our country's on a path that we haven't seen in decades and decades. We've never done better. Go ahead. No, not you. Go ahead.
The trial starting next week. What's your view on how long it should take?
Well, I think it should go very quickly. It's a hoax. It's a hoax. Everybody knows that. It's a complete hoax. The whole thing with Ukraine. So you have a perfect phone call. This is a call, fortunately, it was actually two phone calls. You people don't report that. There were two calls. They were both perfect calls. In fact, probably among the nicest calls I've ever made to foreign leaders. Now, so you have these perfect calls, and everybody says it now. Before they knew they were so good, because fortunately they were transcribed, you had other people saying terrible things about the calls. You had a fake whistleblower that wrote a report that bore no relationship to what was said. Everything was false. You have now the Ukrainian president and the foreign minister of Ukraine saying there was nothing done wrong. In fact, they said there was absolutely no pressure whatsoever. Everything was perfect, and they impeach. It's totally partisan. We had 195 to nothing Republican votes. I guess we got a Democrat actually came over to the Republican side. We had 195 to nothing. This is a hoax. It's a shame. I did the biggest deal ever done in the history of our country yesterday in terms of trade, and probably other things too, if you think about it, the deal with China. And that was the second story to a total hoax. Today we just had passed the USMCA. It's going to take the place of NAFTA, which was a terrible deal. And the USMCA will probably be second to this witch hunt hoax. which hopefully everyone knows is not going anywhere. There was nothing done wrong. This was a perfect phone call. Think of it. The President of the United States, who's led the greatest growth, the greatest economic revival of any country anywhere in the world, is the United States, as big as it is. We're doing better than any other country by far. Our unemployment numbers are the best they've been in over 50 years. African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, unemployment, the best in the history of our country. And I've got to go through a hoax, a phony hoax, put out by the Democrats so they can try and win an election that hopefully they're not going to win. It was put out for purposes of winning an election. Our country is doing great. Our country has never done better. So they figured the only thing they can do, they failed on the Mueller report. That was a bomb. After 2.5 years, they failed. Now they said, what can we do? And they pick up a phone call that was perfect. But they didn't know it was perfect. They only found out later. They made up a phone call. What they did, look, what they did. You have a corrupt person. He's a corrupt politician named Adam Schiff. And he made up a phone call. He went out. You'll hear about this as you grow older. He went out and he said things that he said quid pro quo 8 times. It was no times. He said, don't call me, I'll call you. That's a mob statement. I never said that. Fortunately, I released the transcript of the call. The transcript was perfectly accurate. And now everybody agrees because it went through a lot and they said, well, could you add one word here? Or Lieutenant Colonel said, well, I think they should add, they added the word. Everyone agrees the transcript is perfecto, done by total professionals, right? But I released that after they had done these fraudulent acts. And you get impeached on this. We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have the highest job numbers today. It was just announced. We have more people working in the United States than ever before in the history of our country, almost 160 million people. We're doing an incredible job. And for absolutely no reason, I got impeached. It's a disgrace and it's a hoax. Thank you very much, everybody.
And we've been listening to President Trump telling reporters he did not know Lev Parnas, despite Parnas's claims that President Trump, as well as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Attorney General William Barr, all knew about Parnas's attempts with Ukraine. The president once again called the impeachment trial a witch hunt hoax and bemoaned the fact that the trial is trumping coverage of his China trade deal.